wave at everybody here and actually, I'll have you introduce yourself. My name is Sean. As everybody should know at this point, I am with Go Tennis and the Atlanta Tennis Podcast. And today we have the pleasure of starting our new series with Dr. Patrick Cohn, who works with peak performance sports. So you work mostly with mental training. And before we define mental training specifically, I want you to introduce yourself. Give me who is Dr. Patrick Cohn and what is peak performance sports to get us started.
So I started Peak Performance Sports probably back in 1995 or so, when I started working with professional golfers. And what we do is we help junior to professional athletes, including adult amateurs, improve their mental game for sports. And basically that means their mental preparation and ability to take their practice game to competition.
So practice game to competition, meaning play how you practice, that kind of concept?
Yes, because most of the challenges that we see, Sean, is for tennis players that look like stars in practice, but when they go to matches, it's like they fall apart. The pressure, the expectations, not wanting to let down a partner, for example, being afraid of what a partner might say to them. We handle those type of issues for athletes so that they can successfully take those skills, those strokes that they have in practice, take them to competition and not tighten up and push and get frustrated with not performing perfectly. And we see a lot of that today in the world, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point.
Probably. So back to you started in golf. So you could probably help me with my golf game. The example here is me, which is I am really good on the range. So getting that onto the golf course and actually having that apply, I'm not so good on the actual golf course. So you're the guy that I call up and say, Dr. Cohn, I'm good on the range. How do we get that to translate into my actual performance?
Yes, absolutely. We talk about confidence and expectations and focus, pressure that you might feel, swinging the club with freedom. We talk about that quite a bit in tennis, is swinging out on the ball instead of pushing it or short stroking it. Yes, and those are the challenges that we see with golfers and tennis players alike, is they will short stroke it, they will push it, they will guide it, they will steer it when they're under that competitive pressure and they don't want to disappoint a partner, or they want to badly win that match. That happens as well.
And in that case, we have multiple sport options, which is one of the things I like talking to guys like you that says, okay, yeah, we can help tennis players, but not everybody listening or watching is going to be only tennis, because you also have baseball athletes, you've got other athletes that you can work with, because the concepts are the same. It makes me think of how with the extracurriculars that I used to do in the preschools, teaching a kid basketball and teaching a kid tennis in a preschool at 4 years old, it's all the same concept. It's the same thing. It's still just the system that works around it. So if we take that to either an elite level junior or maybe even just a social tennis player, and we say, oh man, I'm really good when I practice on Wednesday nights with the guys or with the girls, and then Saturday morning, it's just a different thing. My second serve goes away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just have to understand the demands of the sport, but we apply the same mental skills to each and every sport. In baseball, hitters have to deal with that failure, right? In golf, you have to deal with the stop and go nature. You might not hit a shot for 10 minutes, and then you have to get refocused. In tennis, you have to be able to let go of that last point and not let it bleed over to the next point. So as long as you know the challenges of each sport, the same mental skills are going to apply. And I mean, I've worked with like dog handlers at dog shows all the way up to traders as well. So, I mean, we worked with all athletes in all sports. And now I've dabbled a little bit into trading as well, working with the psychology of trading.
Okay, so just for fun, I like the trading idea. I saw that in my research, but I did not see that you've worked with dog handlers. Now,
Yes.
interesting that you say that because it's a small world now. My mother is a professional dog handler.
Oh, wow.
what are the odds of that, right? Small world. So I would
Yes.
be very interested at some point. I'll see if I can get her on and have the two of you talk about it because she's
Hmm.
represented the United States at the world trial. So she's got
Oh, nice.
international level experience. And not a lot of people, when I use that phrase, represent the United States in the world trial from a dog handler point of view, have any clue what that means. And it's really interesting to know that you do understand that.
Yes, absolutely.
That is great. So at some point we'll have to connect those two. I hadn't considered that as an option here. So let's step to the actual definition, because when you and I first spoke, I was asking about what you do, trying to get to understand better the specifics of what you offer in a mental training point of view, which my first question is, this is different from mental health.
Yes, I'm glad you make that distinction because I think the media tends to confound those, with Simone Biles and other athletes as well out there. Mental health is a broader topic for athletes, which will include off course, off court, off the field type issues for them. Maybe things like depression. Now, mental training is very specific to helping athletes perform their best in a competitive arena. I look at mental training as teaching athletes mental skills to help them improve their performance consistency and be able to take their performance from practice to competition more consistently. That's all it is. It's just teaching athletes mental skills for performance, whereas mental health is a way bigger bucket.
Yeah, we spoke with Murphy Jensen at some point, who's focused on helping people with their mental health, which I guess I would picture differently. You bring up Simone Biles as an example there, and I would think in that case that was more of they call it the yips or whatever it's called in gymnastics, where that is a mental training thing, not a mental health thing, right?
Yes, they call it the twisties in gymnastics.
Yeah,
We call it the yips in golf and
yeah.
baseball as well. So yeah, I look at that
In
as very
tennis, we
much of
just
a
call
mental
it as,
training.
oh my God, I hate my life. I think that's what we.
Well, and there might be factors in her life that contribute to her having those challenges in her gymnastics as well. But for the most part, it's a lack of trust in your ability to execute well-learned skills.
And that's mental training. Mental health is more of the personal side. So is that, if I bring that to a tennis point of view, I'm going to look at a Naomi Osaka and I'm going to say, okay, her mental training is on court, off court. It's getting your tennis from the practice court to the tennis match on the big stage. But then if you can't handle the press conference afterwards, is there a crossover there, or is that a little bit more of the emotional mental health side?
Well, you are in a little bit of a gray area there. I think when she steps off the court and she can't deal with the media and she has other challenges in her life, and I don't know what those challenges are. I haven't studied her, but if she has some type of depression or other challenges going on outside of life, then we're in the realm of mental health. However, mental coaches do help with athletes dealing with the media. And they often get, and I'm sure the USTA and other organizations, the NFL, they teach their athletes how to deal with the media and what to say in front of the media. So I think that's part of their education and what they get.
That could be on the mental training side as well, is what you're saying.
Sure. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. So the mental training is, simply put, can I just picture it, if I'm in a layman's term it for myself, to say getting my practice into competition is.
Yeah, but it's way more than that.
Myself there.
If you've ever missed an easy routine ball in the middle of the net and you've got frustrated and you took that frustration into the next point, that's what a mental coach or that's what mental training would address, is those specific challenges that you have that don't allow you to play confidently, relaxed, freely in competition. So it's way more than, but that's a telltale sign, Sean, is when athletes can't take their performance into competition. In other words, you call it a choke. I mean, if you want to call it a choke, not the best word, But if they underperform in competition compared to what they can do in practice, that's an indication or a sign that mental training, mental toughness training, mental skill training is necessary.
Got it. All right. And I've got one specific question that I want to ask, finishing up this definition. And it's about the idea, and you don't know this is coming. So I'm curious as to what your point of view is. And it's not anything to try to catch you in anything. It's a curiosity in my own mind that I've been wondering in the definition of mental training is a little bit of that mental toughness as well as another phrase that we use. And we have people that look at somebody and they might call them arrogant, or they might call them even overconfident, to say, I am the greatest. And is there a place for that, especially maybe at the highest levels, and maybe not necessarily with a social player to come out and go, I'm the greatest, when I just won my league match for $0. We're talking about the high level players, the elite athletes that have to believe. And I go back to the Bobby Fischer example. Bobby Fischer had contempt for his opponents. In this case, is there a place for that I am the greatest in the mental training?
Yeah, so the Muhammad Ali kind of mindset, the Deion Sanders when he was playing mindset, yeah. So one of the things that I like to talk about with athletes and some of the coaches that I coach is that it takes a supreme amount of inner confidence to be the best in the world. Someone like a Tom Brady, right? Takes a supreme amount of confidence. And people outside of the sports world don't always understand that, at least at that level, that high level. And then when it comes off, and Tom doesn't come off that way. He doesn't come off cocky at all, right? He comes off very humble in his approach. But sometimes with high-level athletes, it will come off wrong to people outside of sport, and they'll say, well, that's cocky or that's arrogant. And in reality, it's what they need on the inside. So we talk about with athletes, you have to be cocky on the inside. Being humble on the outside is probably a better approach for the public, for your competitors, your teammates. So that's the formula that we talk about is to be supremely confident. You have to be cocky on the inside and you can be humble on the outside. It's just sometimes that comes off and it rubs people the wrong way. How can he say that? How can she say that? That is just so over the top. But sometimes that's what they feel on the inside, and it might slip to others. But when you talk about Muhammad Ali and Deion Sanders, they were showmen, and so it was part of their entertainment gig. So yeah, Tom Brady, very confident, performer, very confident player, but yet he didn't come off with that arrogance and cockiness.
And I wonder how many athletes struggle with that dichotomy that almost could create a cognitive, if not an emotional dissonance within the person, to be inwardly one way and outwardly another.
Right. Great point. Yes. And I'll put it, what often happen is kids are brought up to sometimes be humble in many families, today. And that's a good, quality to have. And often that humbleness can stifle, trying to be humble a lot can stifle the inner confidence. And it hurts their inner feelings of being really believing in their abilities to the maximum. So yes, that's a great point. So there is a dichotomy there. And that's what I talk about with my athletes. Don't try to be so humble that you're going to knock your own inner belief down.
Yeah. And I think that's something we could probably dive deep into maybe at another time, maybe a longer conversation, to say, hey, what does that look like? What does that inner relationship with your outer self look like? And I think you're probably the guy to have that conversation with us. Dr. Cohn, I really appreciate your time. And we're going to do this every week at 10 o'clock on Wednesdays for the next 12 weeks. And so hopefully anybody who wants to watch us live, you can find us on Facebook, you can find us on YouTube and Instagram. We will be there live, assuming I can get all the technical things working. But I really appreciate your time. And we've got 11 more of these at least coming. And maybe one of them will dive deep into that dichotomy, because that's one of the questions for me as I have a young son now is, I'm the competitive type and my wife is the humble type. And so hopefully we can maybe find that happy medium for him if he decides to be an athlete or even a performer. As you say, some of this is part of the performance in making a good television show. But Dr. Cohn, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we will see you next week.
All right. Thanks for having me.